Yes, sir.
Acha. These are the difference between the soldering and brazing. First of all, we are taking the account of brazing, and secondly, we are taking the account of the soldering. Then, according to the last day class, what we are learned, we can apply soldering on those metal having the melting point more than 600 degrees centigrade temperature, and we can done the soldering on those metal having below the 450 degrees centigrade temperature. The first difference is between soldering and brazing. Solder can apply those metal having the melting point less than 450 degrees centigrade, and brazing can apply on those metal having the melting point less than 600 degree centigrade. The second di- difference between soldering and brazing is that in brazing we can join two dissimilar metal, but only similar metal can be joined with the help of the soldering. If we consider the welding, welding also can apply similar and dissimilar both. Okay, but soldering is only can apply those metal of having the similar. And third important difference between them, in basing we can obtain a good surface finish quality, but in soldering does not yield a good surface finish. If we are compare soldering and brazing, brazing can give us much more good quality surface finish as compared to the soldering. And fourth of one, due to the high temperature joining, brazing can gives up more stronger joint as compared to the soldering. If we are compare the soldering and brazing, the soldering having the less joining temperature, as a result it can provide us less stronger joint. And finally, last of one, in brazing it is produced for production of heat exchanger and radiator, but soldering can be used for electrical and electronic applications. That is the difference between applicational area. Basically, brazing we can use the heat exchanger, radiator, etc. etc. But soldering can be used for the electrical and electronic appliances or applicational area. And another difference between soldering brazing, the example of the beige metal, very common beige metal, is the pure aluminium. And soldering, a common example of the soldered material is the lead. Acha, any queries in between the difference between soldering and brazing? These 5 points are the most important pipe. Okay. Rest of these 5 points you can adding another 5 point. Okay, but these 5 points are much more important as compared to the other. Whenever you can make a note onto your exam copy, obviously you can adding the some extra point from these five. Okay, you can at least mention 9 to 10 point during to your written order in your examination. Acha, Arup, any queries in between the difference between the soldering and brazing
No,
up to
sir.
this?
No, sir.
Acha. Now we are becoming the difference between soldering, brazing, and welding. It is too much very important. If we are observe your last 5 years question, in between two difference means one difference in between the soldering and brazing, and another difference is the welding, brazing, and soldering. This in between these two questions, it can be repeatedly several times into your examination, semester examination. So I would suggest to you that you can make a note into your copy and remember it. This is a very common question into your semester examination. Now we can discuss about the difference between soldering, brazing and welding. First of all, we can choose the parameter. Second of one, we can choose the account of welding. Third of one, we can choose the account of brazing. And lastly, we can choose of account of soldering. According to the temperature. Before starting off the discussion of different type of joining process, we can discuss according to the temperature. We can clarify the joining process into three ways according to the temperature. What is that? Those metal having the melting point up to 450 degrees centigrade, we can apply soldering onto them. Those metal having the melting point up to 600 degrees centigrade, we can apply brazing. Those metal having the melting point more than 600 degree or 650 degrees centigrade, we can apply welding onto them. That is the first differential categorization regarding onto the parameter. Just a minute. না ছুটি দেয়নি না 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 হচ্ছে আমি নিচ্ছি আচ্ছা this first difference are behalf on the temperature and second difference are becoming type of metal to be joined into your welding. Normally we can join the similar metal, but sometime we can also join the dissimilar metal in welding. In brazing, in generally we can join the dissimilar metal. In soldering, we can join only the similar metal. Okay, so if we consider soldering is used for only similar and welding and brazing both are used for the similar and dissimilar both one. Now we are becoming the surface finish quality. If we are consider the welding, the surface finish quality is moderate. In brazing, it is a good. In soldering, it is very poor as compared to the others two. If we are compare the surface finish quality in between welding, brazing and soldering, the brazing can gives up the superior surface finish as compared to the others two. If we are compare the surface finish quality of welding, it should be moderate. Means it should be gives up good surface finish as compared to the soldering, but less than brazing. If the high surface finish quality are required, then machinings are required after the welding. That's why it should be mentioned moderate in term. Okay, it should be dependent which type of welding can be chosen. But everywhere, if we are compare these three, brazing always gives the better surface finish quality as compared to the welding and soldering. Now becoming the strength. If we are compare under the categorization of strength, what we are know? Welding is an high temperature joint as compared to the others two. That's why the strength of the joint of welding is much more higher as compared to the others too. But if we are compare the brazing obviously given the high strength, but it is not so much high as compared to the welding, because welding gives us the very high joining strength as compared to the others two one. In a single word, it is, you can say, welding can gives us a superior strength, joining strength. But brazing having the good high, but not too much high as compared to the welding. And if we are going to the shouldering, it is given weaker joint as compared to the others two. Basically, the shoulder part cannot use to retain a high impact strength. If a part is required to retain a high impact strength, then we cannot choose the shouldering onto them, because shoulder is a very soft joint as compared to the other two. That's why it cannot retain the high impact strength. These four difference are the very important. Except these four difference, there are several varieties of the difference in between three. Just for example, welding is an much more complicated process as compared to the others two. If we are goes with the brazing is much complicated than soldering, but less complicated than welding. If we are goes to the soldering, soldering having the no complication. It is a very easy way. Now we are going to the investment cost. If we are going to the investment cost, soldering, in welding, investment cost is much more high as compared to the brazing and soldering, because we all know that for welding there are welding machines are required, there are electrode are required, there are electrode holders are required, power supply are required. So investment cost in welding is much more high as compared to the brazing and soldering. And brazing having the investment cost is higher than soldering but less than welding. And soldering investment cost are very less as compared to the others too. Skill next criteria is the skilled worker. During to the welding, skilled worker are needed. Otherwise, it cannot perform in welding. But in brazing, less skilled worker are needed as compared to the welding, but much more higher skilled operator are needed as compared to the soldering. But in soldering, there is no skillness are required. Now becoming the criteria of power consumption. The power consumption rate is much more higher in welding, because we know that during to the welding it can raise the temperature up to more than 600 degrees centigrade. That's why the power consumption is much more higher in welding as compared to the brazing and soldering. If we are goes with the brazing, the power consumption rate is lesser than welding and higher than soldering. But in soldering, power consumption is very less as compared to the brazing and welding. Now, the productivity criteria of productivity. The welding are used for the mass production. Massive production can be obtained by the welding. But if we are go with the brazing, it is much productivity can be created as compared to the soldering, but less productive as compared to the welding. And soldering, it is limited in use. Now, applicational area. Most of the mechanical industries, not most of the, nearly all of the mechanical industries can apply the welding, and most electrical and electronic industries can apply the soldering, and bridge should be uses in moderate. Means what is the meaning of moderate? Some relevant work in mechanical industry can be used the brazing. These are the several differential area of the welding, brazing and soldering.